On this very day, the 5th of April, 10 years ago, 20-year-old Matt decided to upload a silly video to the internet of me trying to complete the weekly Kerbal Space Program Reddit challenge, land a submarine on Eve, and launch a BrahMos missile from it. I did this purely because I couldn't be bothered to ensure I was taking the correct screenshots of the right parts of the mission to prove I'd done it, so I just filmed the entire thing, edited it to music, and then stuck it on the subreddit. I remember editing and uploading that video. I did it in an afternoon at my grandparents' house, and I wonder if Matt back then would realise the effect this video would have on my life, you know? I don't want to sound overly dramatic, but I had always wanted to be a YouTuber, and it was crazy to just accidentally fall down this path. And since that video went live, literally 10 years to the day today, it seemed only fitting that I should apply the mad skills I've honed over the decade and see if I can make a better job of the video, or at least make a worthy sequel. Now, I would have really liked to make a shot-for-shot remake of the OG video, but sadly that video used copyrighted music and therefore got blocked in a lot of places, so this time it's going to be in my normal commentary style, but if you head on over to the description, not forgetting to leave a like on the way of course, I'll link an alternate version of this video that is a shot-for-shot, music-for-music remake of the original, and if the link is broken for you, then you're in one of those places that got blocked. I'll also link the original Reddit posts of both the challenge and my submission to the subreddit. But yes, here we are in the space plane hangar constructing the vessel. Inside its forward payload bay is it's going to be a BrahMos missile. This was required to satisfy the Reddit challenge's hard mode criteria, as at the time, building BrahMos missiles in KSP was a bit of a trend on the subreddit. BrahMos missiles, and I don't believe this is unique to them, have this cool launch profile where they shoot up vertically before making a hard pivot 90 degrees. The reason they do this is so that they don't arc up too high and become detectable to enemy radar and, become vulnerable to interception. But, as you may have seen, it also happens to look really, really cool. So I guess that's why everyone was building them at the time. Now, when it came to the design of the submarine, I had two choices. Either make a faithful recreation of the original, or just go all out and make an actual, fully functional submarine that can actually submerge and be a submarine. I wanted this to first and foremost look the same as the original though, so I went with the first option. So it can't submerge and it uses the cupola command pod, which is dumb because it means the pilot is facing the wrong way. That being said, it does sport a couple of upgrades. We now have hinge pieces in the game, so the missile's deployment mechanism is a lot better, and since we have rotors and blades now, I added some propellers to the rear so that it can actually navigate the seas of Eve, albeit not from beneath the waves. This does also leave me open to maybe making a fully functional submarine in a future video. Actually, it's definitely something I will do in the near future, maybe even in the next few weeks now that I'm all inspired and all that. Where do you want me to send it? Shall I keep the submarine on Kerbin, or go to Eve, or Lathe? Which one? Just let me know below. I think if I were to do a submarine like that, then it would be a scientific vessel with labs and stuff on board, probably using station parts mods or something to give not just great first-person views with free IVA when underwater, but also to give the submarine a bit more function. The only thing this submarine can really do is launch a missile once and then float around on the surface of the water. But traditions are tradition. I wanted to try and replicate my original sub as close as possible. You may have noticed that I placed a shielded docking port on the front. That's because I wanted a forward control point. Like I mentioned earlier, the cupola module, the only crewed module on this craft, is pointing the wrong way, and KSP really likes to keep switching a vessel's control point to the crew cockpit, which in this case would completely break the navball, as for example, prograde wouldn't be along the forward line of thrust. So I have that docking port at the front, and every time I stage or hit action group 0, it switches the submarine's control point to that docking port. So if you see the navball suddenly change at any point during this video, then that'll be why, the control point of the vehicle switched. Speaking of control, you can see I placed a giant inflatable heat shield on the front of the submarine to protect the vehicle from the deadly forces inflicted by Eve atmospheric entry, and to make sure the vehicle doesn't become unstable, I added another inflatable heat shield at the back, as well as 4 extendable ablative shields to make sure there is as much drag as possible at the rear of the vehicle. but looking at the screen, it appears to me that the submarine is completely done. I added those 2 aerospike engines at the front of the vehicle, not because I necessarily needed them, but because the original submarine had aerospikes in that configuration at the front, just help it kind of touch down horizontally when we hit the sea at eve. I don't think I really needed them, to be honest, but hey, you know, again, sticking with tradition and all of that. I also put that kind of custom flag on the side of the what's it called, the hull, that kind of shark face. Just thought it looked cool, basically, so that's why I added that. It's not part of a mod, it's just a custom flag that I made. And here you can see in the vehicle assembly building, I'm building the rocket. The rocket is nothing like the rocket I used in the original video. The rocket in the original video was just dumb. It launched the submarine like horizontally rather than having it vertical like a normal rocket stack, so it created loads of drag. Didn't fly very well. I felt this way was just a lot better. Now, here you can see we're in the tracking station. I'm going to time warp to an Eve transfer window. So unlike all the other planets in the game, the transfer window to get to Eve has Kerbin ahead of Eve, specifically 55 degrees ahead of Eve. So I'm kind of using the little lens flare of the sun as kind of my 0 point. I'm just sort of guesstimating 55 degrees between, you know, Kerbin, the sun, and Eve, that line. It's not the most accurate. I wouldn't recommend doing it this way. I would recommend using a transfer tool. Like just Google, I don't know, Kerbal Space Program transfer window planner. But, you know, it seems to work just fine. And we do have a bit of a surplus of fuel, so I wasn't too worried about being super duper duper efficient. So, yeah, there we are. And there is our ridiculously oversized rocket on the launch pad. 4 big orange boosters sporting my Lowne Aerospace logo, as well as a little NASA worm-inspired logo I made. And yeah, I guess it's time to launch. It is a beautiful thing there. So, you know, again, this was like a tribute to my original video. So in this video, there are no parts mods at present. It's all completely stock, with a little bit of an asterisk there that I do have Restock installed. So Restock just basically makes the stock parts look a little bit better. I am told that it's not completely visual, like it does change some of the aerodynamic properties of some of the parts. I'm not sure which parts and to what extent, but I'm told it's basically completely negligible. Like, this was discovered quite a while after Restock release. Someone finally figured out that actually the, I guess, atmospheric behavior of things was different, but I think it was all a bit negligible, to be honest, as we, you know, coast our way to space. In fact, we've nearly run out of fuel on the first stage there, so we're going to get ready to, D-stage? What's the word? It's just stage, isn't it? There you go, and I'm just letting them get clear of our vehicle before I ignite the 4 Rhino upper stage engines. There they go, and these are going to get us kind of not just to Kerbin orbit, but they're going to get us all the way to Eve. I'm then going to detach them on an Eve collision course that we don't leave any debris in space. But yeah, that's the flight plan of things so far. Feels a bit anticlimactic, really. I thought I'd have lots more to kind of say and more emotions to convey, because this is like the 10-year anniversary of my first ever Kerbal Space Program video. But I guess it's just, this is just like my job now, right? Just recording commentaries over KSP, so it doesn't really feel like, I don't know, I thought I'd be feeling more emotion. I don't know if that's weird or not. But yeah, it's just fun to just revisit this craft. And I was getting quite nostalgic, actually. Not just because I was kind of rewatching my original submarine video to kind of make sure I was, you know, hitting the right mission beats, but also I had to uninstall some mods in the mission because I ran into some issues when it came to landing in Eve's oceans. I won't spoil things, but yeah, some complications arose when it came to landing on Eve. Now, don't worry, no cheats or anything were needed, but I had to get a little bit creative with things. So yeah, it was kind of nostalgic to see kind of stock Eve after getting used to visual mods for so long. Anyway, speaking of Eve, as you can see, we're now plotting a course to the purple planet. Maybe it's not the most efficient course. I wasn't really too worried about efficiency because look how much fuel we've got. But, you know, there's our maneuver node line there. I didn't worry about getting it super duper close to Eve because the maneuver node planner, especially in KSP1, isn't the most accurate. Like, when you do the burn, your orbit that results from maneuver node burns very rarely matches what the maneuver node planner predicted. So for most interplanetary burns, I just try and get a course that takes me into like an encounter with the planet or moon's sphere of influence, then I do a mid-course correction burn. Well, not mid-course, but like I'll do another burn soon after to then refine that encounter. So here it is at the beginning of our burn towards Eve. We've got lots of power in those 4 Rhino engines. We're doing it in one big burn rather than splitting it across several burns. And there we are. The burn is done. And as you can see, we do not have an encounter with Eve. Like I said, the maneuver node planet ain't the most predictive, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut the throttle, delete that maneuver node, and then create another one, because as you can see, you might have caught it just for a split second, those little grey encounter nodes, they're much, much closer. Well, they weren't present before, were they? So now they're nice and close, it should be much easier to plot an encounter, but first of all, we're going to get clear of Kerbin and, oh, look at that, Kerbin and the Muns. Sphere of Influence. Then we're just not having to deal with kind of SOI changes on the way to the planet. Makes things nice and easy, makes the move node a little bit more predictable. So here we are, just completing our time warp to escape from Kerbin's Sphere of Influence, and now I'm going to create another maneuver node to do the thing that I just said. So there we are. Now, someone might have commented it by this point already, I'm not sure, but there is something of an elephant in the room that I have not yet addressed. In that, this is not actually the first time I've recreated my Kerbal Space Program Eve Submarine video. Back in 2016, I believe, the subreddit did like a repeat of all the Reddit challenges, and when the Periscope Down challenge came up again, that's the challenge I did for my Eve Submarine, I couldn't help myself but to just re-enter it once again and just recreate the video. So yeah, maybe I'll put that in the description as well, my 2016 recreation. Then you guys can be the judge. Which was the best mission out of all three? Was it this one? Was it the one from 2016? Or was it the OG from 2015? Let me know. I mean, one of the things in the 2015 one, it had a really cool thumbnail, because it had like the submarine being covered in flames, because re-entry heating was not a thing in Kerbal Space Program when I made that video. Like, re-entry effects were a thing, but as for kind of heating and temperatures, that wasn't in the game. So it was a substantially easier mission, all things considered, back in 2015. But yeah, I'm trying to think when re-entry was added. It was definitely in 2015, but it was surprisingly late. I think a lot of people criticized KSP2, rightly so. I mean, KSP2 was very deserving of criticism. But one of the things people criticized a lot about KSP2 is that it didn't have re-entry heating for a very long time. A lot of people didn't seem to remember. Actually, KSP1 didn't have re-entry heating for a long time either. But I mean, it's a lot more forgivable, right? Because it was an honest early access, and it was reasonably priced, and the dev team were much more open and transparent about what they were doing. So, not trying to, praise KSP2 and, slander KSP1 at all. But yeah, that's what I had to say about that. As you can see, there is Eve ahead of us. So I'm just doing a course correction burn because, like I mentioned earlier, I wanted to put me on a collision course when we initially entered Eve's sphere of influence. So I could attach those Rhino tanks and let them crash into the atmosphere, not leave any debris in space. And then we did a radial burn just to make sure the submarine did not enter the atmosphere as well. At least we wanted to enter initially. I did have a go entering from interplanetary speeds with a fairly high periapsis to see if we could just re-enter without capturing first, but the atmospheric entry effects were just too great. It kept on destroying the vehicle. So we're going to have to do things the pro way and do an engine burn capture. As you can see, whilst we've got a lot of Delta V remaining, it's not enough to capture ourselves into a low Eve orbit. So we are going to be entering Eve's atmosphere from an eccentric orbit, which makes landing in the oceans very difficult. Oh, would you look at that? I forgot about this. So actually, I told a bit of a lie. I said that I didn't enter Eve's atmosphere from interplanetary speeds. That's not the case. As you can see, we are very, very briefly entering the atmosphere just because our periapsis was, 700 meters below the Kármán line. Kármán line technically refers to Earth, but you guys know what I mean. So now we're about to go to a very, very small burn to raise our periapsis to be above the Kármán line. And now we're in an eccentric orbit. And see the problem? I can't see where the sea is. It's like, oh, where do I put my periapsis to ensure I land in the ocean? So, well, basically, this happened. I made a quick save and then repeatedly tried entering Eve's atmosphere with a periapsis of differing heights, deorbiting on sooner or later orbits around the planet, and for the life of me, I just couldn't get this thing to land anywhere near the sea, because I just couldn't see where the sea was because of the dense cloud layer of Eve's atmosphere. I thought I might be able to just use the Kerbal Engineer readouts that show you which biome you're above, but honestly, it just wasn't working, and I only have so much patience. Eventually, I just said screw it, and temporarily deleted my volumetric clouds and environmental visual enhancements mods to allow me to actually see where the oceans were. And once I figured out how I needed to deorbit myself, I put myself on that trajectory, made a quick save, then loaded it again with the mods reinstalled. And so now you can all bear witness to that re-entry in all of its modded glory. So here we go. So first things first, going to make sure we're pointing prograde so that the heat shield is, facing the right way. I'm then going to deploy the rear heat shields as well as detach the 2 side tanks, which we don't need anymore. I like detaching them last minute, so we've got a nice fun fireworks show to watch as we begin our re-entry. So you can watch how quickly those things... There, look at that. We're barely into the atmosphere already. They're exploding. Whoa. And there goes the last one there. So now it's just a case of holding prograde and hoping that the reaction wheels of this vessel, as well as the kind of heat shield configuration, is kind of robust enough to keep this thing from flipping out of control. A couple of my practice re-entries, you know, when I was trying to locate to the sea, resulted in this thing flipping out. So let's see if we can hold it steady and Jebediah Kerman can make it down without being at risk of overheating and exploding. So you can see those rear heat shields now getting a bit wobbly. I guess the torque of those alligator hinges was overcome by the force of Eve entry, but look at that! It was all fine, and we can have a look at the Kerbal Engineer readouts at the top of the screen. If you can't read it because it's very small, it says that we are over the Explodium Sea, which I believe is the largest body of water on Eve, so we're definitely going to be splashing down. You see those cool little VaporCones showing up there as we decelerate to subsonic speeds, and then we just sort of spin, you know, helicopter, you know. It's a bit of a slow descent because Eve's atmosphere is, or A, Eve's atmosphere is very, very thick, and B, you can see how many, you know, parachutes have got on board this thing, and those big heat shields create a lot of drag as well. So kind of all those draggy parts in kind of weird places causes this thing to not be the most stable when it comes to the descent, like we are spinning around on the spot, but it's fairly controlled. It's not like speeding up and putting us at risk of Kraken attacks. I might just speed up the footage here actually, just so get down to the good bits. There we are, passing through the upper cloud layer. And now our parachutes have all fully deployed, so we can go ahead and detach the 2 big inflatable heat shields from the front and rear of the ship. There we are. Checking on how Jebediah's doing there. Not much of you there, just a lot of parachutes. Anyway, let's go ahead and detach the 4 ablative shields. So I extended them so that they create a bit more drag and make sure they floated away from the ship rather than towards it and potentially destroy our rear propellers. And yeah, not much more to say. It's just a case, I guess, of time warping down to splashdown. Now, I mentioned the original submarine from the original video had those 2 aerospike engines on the front just to make the thing controllable during ascent from Kerbin. Weren't really needed this time, but I was able to use the lower aerospike just to dampen our landing in the ocean. So I guess they were kind of useful in the end. And with that, 10 years on after the original, Jebediah Kerman is once again stranded on Eve in the submarine. Come to think of it, I did do a sequel to that video also in 2015, in which I went and rescued Jebediah from Eve, so I guess I'll probably have to do a sequel to this one at some point. Make sure you leave a like down below and comment that you want that if you want to see that. Eve sea level rescues are probably the hardest kind of mission to do in Kerbal Space Program, to be honest. When was the last time I even did an Eve return? I think it was when I was rescuing Martin Cedarpants in the Stranded series, which is a fun old mission. So yeah, I guess I'll do an Eve sea level return mission at some point to go get Jebediah coming back. I have always wanted to try the new thing with Eve landers where you use propellers to get through the thickest part of the lower atmosphere, but I don't know. I think I just prefer the simplistic beauty of a rocket rather than the propellers. And the propellers just was a little bit cheaty. I don't know. It's not cheating, but you know what I mean. It just I like the purity of rockets, and rockets are just so much cooler. We also, I didn't mention this, but we've been firing the cannons on the ship, which are just firework pieces. In the original video, I used the front aerospike to serve as like a cannon, but don't need to this time. I wanted to get Jebediah to kind of ghost ride the whip, and I guess it's not ghost riding the whip because he's still on said whip. But as you can see, he sort of just fell over when he got out of the hatch. I had to wait for the submarine to come to a complete dead stop, or near enough a dead stop, before he would become responsive once again. So yeah, kind of weird. I don't think I've ever had that happen to me before, but yeah, just sitting around waiting for Jeb to do something. I've sped the footage up here whilst I was just waiting. And aha! He's alive! Great stuff. So, you know, I thought I'd have him just walk around on the top deck here, just like I did in the original video. But as you can see, this time around, I remembered to put a ladder on the submarine, so he can now get back inside the cupola module. In the original video, he couldn't. I forgot to add a ladder, so literally I had to reload a quick save just to get Jebediah coming back on board. So he might be a little bit less bored whilst waiting for a rescue this time around, because he can get out and stretch his legs, breathe in that lovely toxic atmosphere, and yeah, just have a great fun old time. So, obviously landing on Eve is one thing, but of course we need to launch the Brahmos missile as well. So first things first, we're going to open the hatch, then we're going to activate that little hinge that raises the missile, add a little flagged like a nuclear symbol. So this thing is packing some heat. Are you ready, guys? Ready? 3, 2, 1. And, yeah, turned out it was a dud. Payload didn't explode. But, you know, launched alright. In test launch, it did work better than in the final version. It was supposed to be that when I pressed stage, it would detach the lower stage and fire the second stage engine simultaneously. But it didn't happen. It just detached the lower stage without firing the engines. That sort of threw me a bit. I had to press spacebar like 2 or 3 times to stage the missile, which I guess was the reason why I had a bit of a janky flight plan. But isn't that what Kerbal Space Program is all about? Having a little bit of jank here and there. So I decided not to reattempt a second launch of the missile. Instead, just go for a little sail around Eve. Like, this thing can move at a fair old pace, actually. So a rescue mission, in theory, shouldn't be too difficult because I can just sail this towards the rocket. I haven't tried steering it, to be fair, but we do have 2 propellers on the back. So by, changing the RPM level of one versus the other would help us steer. A bit like, a tank having one track spin faster than the other track allows the tank to turn. Does that make sense? Anyway, yes, we're firing lots of fireworks to celebrate this 10 years of Kerbal Space Program YouTube on this channel. Yeah, kind of emotional. I did think about doing like a big montage, Tom Scott style, when he did his 10-year anniversary video, but I don't know, just doesn't really feel like deserved because this is just dumb KSP videos, but still an emotional time nonetheless. So I hope have any of you watching been with me these 10 years? Was there any highlights that you enjoyed more than others, or any favorite videos? Yeah, thanks for the support, guys, especially you guys on the right, my Patreon YouTube members. But yeah, thank you for watching and goodbye.